what we're talking about here on air. I have literally over 100 government-funded textbooks like Eco Science by the White House Science Czar. I have a mainstream news article from 2006 where he talked about population reduction and drugging the population. That's all these people talk about. We've got books written over 100 years ago how they were going to do it, and they've done it. As Aldous Huxley said when he wrote Brave New World in '33, this is what the top scientists that he worked with, his brother later headed up the United Nations UNESCO as the Secretary General of UNESCO and called for it. So, Dr. Blaylock, let's talk about specifically what fluoride does, because the studies I've seen show that it doesn't just cause IQ reduction and a dumbing down, but that it causes people to become more servile. And there's no denying that lithium does this, and they're admitting they want lithium for that purpose.
Well, this is part of the study that Dr. Mullenix did. She's one of the world's top neurotoxicologists. When she found that if you gave fluoride to animals after they were born, they become extremely apathetic. And they become what she described as couch potatoes. They just don't have a sense of doing anything productive. If you transfer that to humans, then she found the brain level in these animals is equal to what we're seeing in humans. We're going to have a society that is going to be very difficult for people to concentrate and focus attention and to pay attention to what's going on in the world and be able to analyze it.
And look at Americans, the most intelligent, the most patents, the most aggressive. Historians worldwide wrote about us, and now we're the most slovenly and dumbed down because they've been hitting us with a chemical attack for 50 years.
Right, by destroying our educational system and at the same time doing a number on our ability to think through chemical dumbing down. That's exactly what's happening. Let me just give a couple of quotes here I think people will find of interest. This says, fluoridation is the greatest case of scientific fraud of the century. That was a quote from a friend of mine, Robert Carton, who's a former EPA scientist, senior scientist. The second quote says, regarding fluoridation, the EPA should act immediately to protect the public, not just on the cancer data, but on evidence of bone fractures, arthritis, mutagenicity, and other effects. That was a quote from William Marcus, Ph.D., senior EPA toxicologist. So here's two of the top EPA toxicologists saying the whole fluoridation thing was a fraud to begin with, and it's extremely toxic. Now, you think that the government top scientists know that. The government knows it as well. And whoever is going through these towns doing everything they can to force the towns to fluoridate, for instance, like Governor Schwarzenegger, who made the entire state of California fluoridate their water, whether they wanted to or not, you think they don't know these same things, the effects of fluoride? The National Science Institute did a extensive study to finally answer the question, is fluoridation toxic? Their conclusion was exactly what all of us have been saying about fluoride, that it is a brain toxin, a bone toxin, an organ toxin, a cell toxin, a DNA toxin, and it bioaccumulates so that people now are getting doses that are without any question toxic. Without any question, it has neurological effects, one of which is inducing a type of apathy.
And doctor, this is an assault. This is a stealth kill, soft kill assault. These eugenicists, funded by the robber barons, who funded Planned Parenthood, abortion, everything else, they are literally brain damaging people and destroying their destiny. It is the ultimate crime. If we beat these people in the history books, it will be remembered as the greatest crime in history. Back in 70 seconds with Dr. Russell Blaylock. I'm Alex Jones. Dr. Russell Blaylock is our guest. His top website is BlaylockWellnessCenter.com. BlaylockWellnessCenter.com. You spell Blaylock, B-L-A-Y-L-O-C-K, just Blay and Lock. Dr. Russell Blaylock, very successful brain surgeon, researcher, inventor of some of the most popular used brain surgery techniques out there. And we've been covering what the head EPA Scientists have said, we've had the gentleman on, he mentioned, they've written letters with thousands of other scientists signing them, saying, why are you doing this? Even the American Dental Association, 4 or 5 years ago, my dad's a dentist, by the way. This was a big shock for him. He's seen the documents now and understands what's happening. Said, yeah, children under 5 don't brush their teeth with fluoride, causes dental fluorosis. Now, in fact, let me just grab it off the floor here. All over store shelves, all over the country, baby water with purified water with fluoride added. The toothpaste, everything. This is so diabolical. Dr. Blaylock, bottom line, they've gone from calling us kooks to now admitting they want to make us servile, and now they want to add lithium, and now they're mixing it in with the crops and the food. I mean, my God, these people, the point I was making is they're assaulting us. They admit they're assaulting us. We need to have, grand juries call for indictments? What do we do to stop these people?
Well, I think our only real protection is nullification. The states have got to get together and just nullify this stuff. Say we're not fluoridating anything, and we're not putting lithium in our water, and the federal government has no constitutional authority to do such a thing, and nullify it. People should read this new book by Thomas Woods on nullification. I just recently read the history of nullification, and it's our greatest protection. The states got together and ratified the Constitution with the assurance that they would retain their sovereignty and rights as guaranteed by that Constitution. Now the federal government says, no, there's no states, it's only individuals, and the majority rules. Well, if you read these articles about this lithium fluoridation, that's exactly what they said. As one of them says, as long as the negative consequences or inconveniences are relatively minor, water fortification seems to be one of those cases where the majority preference and interest should prevail. Well, here's the problem. Let's look at fluoridation again. They admit, everybody admits, and all the scientific studies admit, that there's a subgroup of people that are highly sensitive to water fluoridation toxicity. People who have chronic illnesses, people who have chronic kidney disease, people who have certain neurological diseases, pregnant women, small babies. All those are at-risk groups. Well, their view is, well, they're a minority, so who cares? Let them be harmed. And that's what they're saying about the lithium. Well, yeah, there's people that could be harmed, but the majority should rule. Well, this country's not based on majority rule. If you read the Federalist Papers, there were great assurances that the Constitution protected the minority, the small groups. Yeah,
democracy's two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. And if the government can get 100 million fluoride heads to vote to take our guns, they can't do it. But it's the outrageousness, the nakedness of this tyranny, how they're just out in the open saying, yeah, we know it doubles bone cancer in boys. Yeah, we know it's causing arthritis. We know it's causing brain damage and macular degeneration. We know it's causing organ failure. We don't care. We're liberal. We love you. They know full well they're not liberal. They're a bunch of population reductionist control freaks that need to have their butts locked up in prison. I think we need to start getting really aggressive with these people assaulting us and our families. Doctor, I'll be honest with you. Every time I look at my children and think about how much trouble I got to go to protect them from these bastards, I get really angry. And I want to talk to you about, as a man, not as a top brain surgeon, not as a scientist, but as a man with family, how this affects you. Because let me tell you something. I'm against violence, but I am for defending myself. And I'm just more and more getting sick of these people and getting red-blooded angry. BlaylockWellnessCenter.com. Stay with us. Boy, a lot of things have changed. Oh, sure, I've got in my library over 100 government textbooks and white papers written by every major top government-funded scientist out there. And then I've got all the other government scientists coming out and saying this is deadly poison, they're killing us. And the government says, we don't care, it's going to continue. And now they say, yeah, we're going to give you vaccines that are live virus, re-engineered herpes virus. It's going to go in and destroy the receptor sites for hormones that cause stress and anger to make you be calm and happy. And why this will stop suicide, so everybody's got to do it. And in one of these reports, they say, let me just pull the report out. Here it is. Oxford professor Julian Savalayu Says fluoridation demonstrates how populations of the future could be mass medicated through pharmacological cognitive enhancers. And he said, writing for Oxford, and he's their top bioethicist there, that when questions arise whether they should be added to the water, like fluoride, he goes on to say we need Ritalin, Adderall, and he lists a bunch of other chemicals. So Ritalin, Adderall, Prozac. I mean, Prozac increases suicide in all of the major studies that are out there, Dr. Blaylock.
Oh, exactly right. Exactly right. I have a friend of mine named Joseph Douglas who wrote the book Red Cocaine, and he's written a recent book called Mind Control. But he worked for the NSA for a while as a debriefer of Soviet defectors, and he debriefed one of the highest-ranking Soviet KGB agents. And we've gotten to be good friends for many years, and he sent me information showing me that the Soviets' program was exactly what you're talking about, controlling people's minds using drugs and sophisticated advanced technology and neuropharmacology to be able to control stress and apathy and concentration and susceptibility to brainwashing. Well, now I'm seeing, things you're discussing and that both of us know about, we're sort of seeing the same sort of thing over here, the same dream where we can medicate the water, make people more compliant to accepting these ideas. We can make them more apathetic so they're less likely to react adversely to some of our more totalitarian schemes. It's a control method that was first intensely being studied by the Soviet Union, and the United States government was quite interested in this. Now they're pursuing it. So I think people are just not paying attention if they're listening to these people who say, oh, we're just a bunch of right-wing nutcases who see a conspirator behind every bush. Well, as Alex said, and both of us, read the primary literature, what's being written by these people. In their writings, they openly talk about this. They don't deny that this is the goal they're seeking. So, you're kind of being foolish if you say, well, this is a bunch of conspiracy nuts. You better read their literature because they're telling you that, yes, this is what we intend to do. And I said that the book written by Dr. Lilly on the history of molecular biology, it's a history book. It's a science book. But she had access to all the Rockefeller files and tells that this is exactly what Rockefeller dreamed of, the day that he could, by biology, control human thought and behavior.
Well, Doctor, as you know, 150 years ago, or a little more than 150, Galton creates eugenics. The Royals love it. It says, we're the elite, we're allowed to rule. And by 1900, literally hundreds of white papers about drugging the water. Then they discovered DNA, and they funded the abortion, the Planned Parenthood, and it's all stated. And so modern science was interwoven in the last 100 years, and medicine and chemistry, with eugenics. I mean, my dad went to UT, and he said every class he was in, they taught him, you're the elite because you're going to, be going to medical school, and you're the elite because you have the highest test scores, and, should we drug the water? Because these were young people. They were just testing to see if they'd buy into the club to then be promoted. And then when my dad was top of his class, they pulled him aside and said, look, we're carrying out eugenics. And he kind of freaked out and, wasn't part of it. But it's not just my dad, it's everybody. I mean, let me ask you, Dr. Blaylock, when you went to several prestigious universities, did you ever run into this propaganda?
Well, yeah. I mean, and the interesting thing was, you talk to your colleagues, they were not opposed to these ideas. They thought they were good ideas. There's this elitist mentality that Tom Sowell wrote a whole book about, that they think that they should rule society, and your job is to do what they tell you.
Yeah, that's visions of the anointed.
Visions of the anointed, and that's, it all stems back to an ancient principle of Gnosticism. And Gnosticism basically says that there are certain people on earth who have tremendous wisdom, and they should rule the world.